I'm James from Unreal Fishing Charters, and today I've got a couple of baby snappers or pinky snappers that I want to use to teach you how to properly fillet your own fish and to be able to do a good job of it, and hopefully have a little bit of confidence in doing it without any wastage and being able to do it yourself at home. The first thing that we need is obviously a knife that's nice and sharp. If it's very blunt, it's hard even for somebody who's very good at it, so it's good to make sure it's very sharp before you start. And then what I prefer to do is to take the fish and take the stomach out first, so it saves making a mess. The easiest way to do that is to find the small hole right at the bottom of the fish here. Now I've already done this one, but push the knife in as flat as you can. Don't go in on too much of an angle, or else you'll pop the guts open and then you'll cause the guts to possibly taint the taste of the fish. So run the knife through like this until you get right up to here, and then you should be able to cut all the way open, which will leave the fish open like that. The next step is I break the gill across the middle here, so that cuts through there, and then you can break the fish open, take the gill section and pull, and all of the stomach contents should follow with that. Now unfortunately that's a little bit messy, but once it's done, and there won't be any more of that type of mess to come. So it should be nice and clean, just maybe a little bit of blood left inside, but the good thing is it's good clean blood and it's not going to hurt anybody or anything. One important thing when you're cleaning your fish is don't wash it along the way. When you buy meat from the butchers, you don't get a piece of meat that's been washed under the tap. If you feel like you want to wash it just before you cook it, that's up to you. But the idea is to try and clean it or cut it up as cleanly as possible, and then keep it without washing it, and with the least amount of juice and water on it, the better. So now we're ready to fillet. Now I'm taking everything in very slow motion and slow steps so that everybody can watch carefully and do this themselves at home. I take this fin and you'll see that there's a small piece of bone right there. So I try to get it's like a heavy scale, and you notice that we leave the scales on. By doing that, it makes it easier to fillet. So we just cut straight in there and follow the gill straight in and under, because there's some good meat right in here that we don't want to waste. And from there, we should be able to just follow this bone along. And there's a couple of big bones in this piece that make it very difficult to use this as part of the fillet. So now that we've got right down to the backbone, the idea is hold fingers on the head of the fish to give you some support, and turn the knife gradually as you seesaw it back and forward. And we want to watch this fin here, if you can see that. You want the knife to follow just above that fin, and also at the bottom you want it to be able to follow just above that fin. And the easiest way to do that is, once you feel the backbone, you're pushing the knife down with your finger here, put your hand on top of the flesh. You should be able to slice the knife in slicing motion. Sometimes it gets stuck on a couple of the rib cage bones along here. You just give it a slice like that, and as you're pushing the knife down with this hand, it'll keep the knife nice and flat, hard against the backbone. And give it those little swipes and keep going all the way to the end, just feeling your way over the backbone. Don't feel silly if you have to go really slowly, because at the end of it you're going to get more on your fillet, and it's going to be a feeling of reward, as you can get a nice clean backbone there that really has no meat left on it. It's just straight down to the backbone. So you feel good that you haven't wasted any fish. Now you've got the fillet with the skin and the scales still on this side. What I often do is just wipe any scales or blood off onto the fish, because we're not going to use that part. Now we've got this rib cage that's got some bones left in it there. You can see those bones as I push them down. Now those bones tend to go to about where my finger is pointing and to about there, so they don't go all the way to the end. So just a little bit of seesawing with the fingers hard down on the bone, and that becomes a scooping effect. So you just more or less feel the bones and follow them. So you just follow them underneath, and you'll get to the point where you feel that you're not touching bones anymore, and that's the piece that comes off, and that's basically all bones. There's barely any meat on that, so that can go straight into the rubbish. Now we've got a fillet that just needs the skin taken off it. So it might be easier for some people to put a fork down on there to hold it tight. I just use my fingernail, put the knife straight in here very gently. You don't want to break through the skin. Now that I'm down to the skin, the idea is to keep the knife as flat as you can. If you go on too much of an angle down, you'll cut through the skin, so we don't want that. But we need a little bit of an angle downwards, just so that we've taken all the meat off the skin. And what you can do, just keeping your fingers on that skin so that you've got something to push against without dragging the fillet across the cutting board, you should be able to just keep folding that fillet back and working your way along. And this might look hard, but it's actually quite easy. You just do it nice and slowly, and if you do go through the skin, just stop and pick that skin off and then get started again nicely, and you'll end up with a perfect fillet like that. The only thing that's wrong with that fillet now, it's quite clean. There's no real blood and guts on it, there's no scales on it, but there is still a couple of bones right in the middle section here, right through this. So you can, if you lay the fillet down, you'll feel the bones. They run probably to about halfway down the fillet. So what we do, just feel where those bones are and run the knife in alongside them, and just cut alongside them on that side, and then do it on the opposite side. So you end up, you're going to make the fillet look like a bit of a V shape or a Y shape, because we're going to take this little slither of meat out that has the bones in it, so now the kids can eat it and there will be no complaint of any bones. So unfortunately we take that little piece out, that's filled up, whether you can see it in the light or not, all those little lines, they're all little bones. I just call them the pin bones. We just wrap that up with that beautiful bit of crocodile skin, and that's all rubbish. Now we've got a fillet that you could drop straight in the frying pan with a little bit of salt and a bit of olive oil and maybe a couple of herbs, or you could crumb it and put it into the frying pan, and literally in 30 seconds that would be ready to eat, and it would be succulent and delicious. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you guys to have a go yourself.